Welcome to the Real Estate Talk podcast with myself, Oliver Ingalls, and my esteemed co-host, as always, Benji Weinberger. Now, if you learn anything from this podcast, if you take any tips or nuggets away, we would love for you to like, subscribe, and share. Send it to all your friends and family. We much appreciate it. Now, on today's podcast, we are going to be talking about a very hot topic. Very, very hot topic. Employed versus broker. Now, there is a lot of change in the industry at the moment. Weekly, daily, we are seeing people move. And there are so many questions I am being asked about, Ollie, what should I do? And so look, we've had a bit of both, Bench, haven't we? So we're going to dive in today to many hot topics and give you our experiences firsthand. So Bench, tell me, look, we both started at corporate agencies.
Yep.
And I had a brilliant upbringing from corporate agency. Tell me your experience of the pros of Knight Frank when you first started.
Yeah, look, there are massive benefits of working for a massive company. I think Knight Frank is the largest independently owned estate agency in the world. So that's quite powerful. And working as a 21-year-old going into your first job, that's quite a cool place to start. So the brand that Knight Frank holds, you see that logo, it holds a lot of weight. And you go into an office and you have on day one 60 listings, assuming you're in a price point. So for example, I was looking up to properties up to £1 million. We'd have 10, 15 properties, which is significant amount of properties. You'd have full access to the database of hundreds of buyers that are looking for that sort of thing. So for a newbie, you've got a database that, from day one, you can just start with.
Yeah.
When you start in the brokerage world, you absolutely don't have that.
Start with zero. Yeah.
And I just remember going in on day one and my boss saying, here's a list of people, call them.
Yeah.
And that is a real luxury.
Yeah.
To be able to have that database that you can leverage of. I do think it's changing in a way that the databases nowadays are less important, because otherwise the big corporates would sell all their properties within the first 4 to 6 weeks if the buyer was sat in their database, which obviously doesn't happen. But having that opportunity that you have a black book or database of people that you can call from day one is, I think, a massive pull factor for someone that's inexperienced and not done it before.
Yeah. And I suppose the other flip side of that is training, isn't it? Like probably very similar to you when I first started out at my first corporate agency, the first 2-3 weeks, so you're training every day. You're going around, you're spending time with different, you're spending time in seminars and how to register applicants and how to do viewings. And you really learn the key basis of agency. Whereas again, if you go straight into a self-employed broker role, you don't know any of that. You are literally going in blind. I presume you had this similar training at Knight Frank at the time. Yeah,
look, I guess it's difficult because you come into a position and you're already in a seat that is fee earning. So you have to make money.
Yeah.
So spending a week training is time that you are not at your desk making money for the business. And therefore it's kind of a week's training and then pretty much that's it. And I think the job entails a lot more training on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, rather than just showing someone, a couple of examples of good phone calls, bad phone calls. Obviously it's great. And yes, you do learn. I think one of the things that I have had issues with and heard of issues with training in the industry is that there's so many different people in that training session that are on completely different paths.
Right.
So for example, when I had my training, I was, 1 day old in industry. I was on the same training course as someone that had recently joined from another company that had been in industry for 10 years.
Interesting.
So, I think training side of things is super important. And it's hard to get it right, but it's a long journey. I'm still learning now. I've been doing it for 11 years and I'm still learning things. So to kind of put a new agent in a week's worth of training and that's it. I think it needs more of the mentorship and guidance along the way, which is just as, if not more important than a 1-week training course.
Yeah, 100%. But like you said, being at a corporate or an employed role, almost, you're there every day. You're there, you turn up at 8:30, you're with everyone else around you, senior people who've had a lot more, industry experience, and you're constantly then listening to their conversations. You're learning from the best people around you, which is invaluable. We always talk about how younger people that speak to me say, Ollie, how would you get into it now? I'd say find the best person around, find the best agent and spend every day with them, listen to them, watch them, take the best bits and then mold your own kind of character into it. And I suppose if you go again into the employed role, you can be on your own sometimes. Everyone's out doing their own stuff, doing their own business. And if you don't have that mentorship, it must be very difficult to learn.
Yeah. And look, I guess, that can tie into a drawback of the brokerage world. Whilst we're fortunate that, for example, we've got 40 odd people in our business, there are independent agents that perhaps aren't necessarily a broker. They're still employed, but there's a smaller company. They might not have the people to leverage off. Yeah. Whereas in a big corporate company, I know when I was in my first office, I had amazing people around me. Yeah. And I was able to listen and learn from them and kind of cherry pick the best things. Yeah. So again, training is good, but having good people around you is better. Yeah. And if you don't have the people around you that you can leverage off, and it's interesting because we spend more time with colleagues than we do with family. Yeah. And I always think that as a child growing up, you're a product of your environment and you kind of mold your life based off pretty much what your parents do. And I think similar is what we do in a working capacity. I've had people that I've been around where I was previously where now I would never do those sort of things. So I'm now with different people in my office and they show me different ways. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really interesting. And on that point, it's so vital to have that mentor kind of person around you that will guide you because you need that guidance. What
would you say if someone wanted to go straight into being a self-employed agent and hadn't done it before? What advice would you give them?
Look, I think going into brokerage is hard. Even if you've got a black book, you've got a network and you're experienced, it's hard, and we'll come on to that. There's no sugarcoating that. So I think someone, fresh-faced, perhaps with no experience, no network, I don't know if that would be the right move because I think they'd struggle. We struggle, and we've been doing it for so many years, working in amazing companies with amazing knowledge and good networks. And our biggest issue is getting business. It's hard. So if we struggle, how would someone who's, coming out of uni at 18 or coming after uni at 21 with no experience and no network, I don't know what they would do.
And you've made two comments there about one being experience, one network. Okay. Let's say they've got the network, but they don't have the experience.
So then I think they would need to have that mentor / someone that believes in them that would take them in under their wings. Yeah. And I think that's where the emergence of teams within the brokerage, which obviously is very normal in America. But I don't think there is in the UK teams within brokerages. And I think this is a new thing that we're kind of stepping into. That if, for example, someone reached out to me or you and said on Instagram, hey, thinking of getting into real estate, I've got no experience, but this is where I live. This is my network. This is the cohort of people I was at university with and where they live. And then you'd probably meet them for a coffee. And if they can demonstrate that they can bring business in, it's a free hit for me as a team leader to bring someone into my team. Because I think I can teach someone the knowledge, but I can't tell someone to get a network.
Of course.
Whereas if they just come with a network, the knowledge side, I'm not too concerned about. And then I guess on the flip side, if someone came with knowledge but no network, I can let them tap into my network. But if you don't have either, like someone who would be fresh-faced out of uni or after college, there isn't much value they can add.
No, you're right. I think it's a lot of people have that I've spoken to have said the advice I've always given them is to jump into, it doesn't have to be a corporate, there's great independence, but an employed role where again, they can be there every single day. They can learn from everybody. But like you said, they've got to now build their own network over the years ahead of them. The great thing about being employed is that you walk in, like you said, you're given like 100 applicants or something straight away. And that's 100 future potential, clients.
And I guess the other thing, which is really important, which I've taken with me that I've learned from the corporate world, is structure. And I know we spoke about this in one of our more recent meetings in terms of discipline and structure.
Yeah.
If you're coming straight out of, into your first job and you've never worked in a working environment before and you go straight into the brokerage world, my days will never look the same. I could have one day where I have no appointments and I'm sat upstairs trying to be proactive and think of things to do. I could have another day where I'm literally back to back from 8:30 until 6, 7, and then I need to go home and do my emails.
Yeah.
So, one of the big, I think, pros of the corporate world is the structure.
Yes.
And I learned a lot from that. So, we had a structure where you'd be in at 8:30, you'd sort your stuff out, and then 9 to 11 is phone calls every single day without fail. And then outside of that, it's relatively flexible in terms of, go out, do your viewings, do your feedback. I know obviously we've had guests on where they've spoken about other corporate companies where it's a lot more regimented from the first until the last minute.
Yeah.
But I had that structure in terms of call outs, feedback, viewings and stuff. And that I've taken with me. Whereas if I didn't have that, and I'm even now in cases, and I was at an open house yesterday speaking with someone who left corporate, went into the brokerage world. She was saying one of the things she struggles most with is the discipline and the structure. Because you could have your last viewing at 1:30, it's sunny like it was yesterday, and she could go to the gym or she could go to Primrose Hill and just chill, which I guess is one of the things is quite nice. You do have that freedom to do that. But coming back to the question is having that structure, learning through the corporate world, I think sets you up quite well moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's say someone's then had 3, 4, 5 years of experience, and they've started to learn from the best people around them. They've got their feet under the ground, they're under the desk, sorry. They've done some good deals, they're progressing. What would you say that someone's next step should be? Let's say they're now sat there, the people watching at home, they're like, okay, cool. Look, I've been an agent now, all right, and I'm wondering what to do.
It's a really good question. And I think probably a lot of people watching might be in that boat. And I know I was in that boat and I probably waited an extra year or two than I maybe should have. I guess it depends on what that person's strengths are. Fine, you can have the knowledge, but when you leave, so when I left, I've said it on previous podcasts, all my friends knew me as Benji Knight Frank. Like that's who I was. Yeah. And then I was thinking to myself, well, what when I leave and I call my clients and I'm just like, it's Benji Weinberger, and you don't have that big corporate brand to kind of back you up. I guess it depends how confident they are in their ability. But if you think you can take clients with you, or they'll follow you because they love you and what you stand for, then you need to start thinking about going alone, going in a brokerage. If you can't come up with a list of people that you think you have a good enough relationship with, then maybe you need to think, well, if I can't think of it now when I'm in this seat, why is it going to be any different when I actually pull the trigger?
Yep.
But I think, have conversations, explore, speak to people like us, speak to people who have actually done it. Because, you don't want to get into a comfort zone and just waste your career in a place that you're not potentially happy. Yeah. But then also, some people would look at what we do and they'd be horrified. Yeah. What, you don't have a guaranteed income at the end of the month. Yeah. So it's not a one size fits all. There are some people that have more appetite for risk. Some people like the comfort of knowing that they've got somewhere to go. They know what their day is going to be structured like. They know what they're going to get paid at the end of the month. And they know that if they do a good job, they might be able to negotiate a bonus. Yeah. Some people are like that, but then there's some people that will chew through walls and will want to get paid. And it depends on the person. I mean, we both have been in that seat. What would you say to someone who was, let's say, they were caught in two minds. They wanted to take that risk. I mean, what advice would you give them?
I think do you know what? It's really interesting because you're right. When you go self-employed, you have to know how to business generate. You have to know how to give the right advice and ultimately, bring an attraction onto the market. You have to know how to market the home. You have to be able to create content. You have to be able to do the viewings and agree the deals and do the sales progression. Then you might have to do rentals. Okay. I'd done my first rental 2 months ago. Had to learn it. I've never done it in 11 years. Then you have to market yourself and your business. Then you have to go home and you have to think about the accountants, and how you're going to do your accounts. Then you start growing a team. Then you've got to think about the legalities. Then you start doing a podcast. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, I'm learning on the spot.
Life,
yeah. And 100%. And then suddenly you're learning on the spot. Because what I've sometimes found is that you can get great negotiators, or you can get great managers, or good listers, or good sales progression. People don't do their own sales progression. Now, the problem is if you're good at one of those things, when you go into self-employed, suddenly you'll need to do all of them. And the problem, I think we spoke about it before, where you've got the bucket scenario and then you've got a couple of holes in your bucket. But then the problem is you can put water in the top, you can win business, but if you're not doing, servicing the clients, then you're just going to lose it at the bottom. So I think you have to be well-rounded in this job. Discipline is everything, because you're quite right. You don't have to get out. If you've got kids and all, you don't have to get out of bed. There's no one telling you to be in the office at 9 a.m. or 8:30 and work till 6 o'clock and pick up that call at 12 at night or go on that Saturday viewing. No one's telling you to do that. You can sit there and go, I'm not going to do that meeting today. Or I'm just going to rearrange.
So what do you do in terms of your structure? Yeah.
Look, I'm a big believer in, I mentally have to be ready for work by 8 o'clock. Okay. So I'll be up early. If I go to the gym now, I'll be going to the gym now. I'll be ready. I'll be showered and I'll be dressed and I'll be ready at 8 a.m. And that's the first win, because I'm ready to work. If I've got my suit on and everything else, already I'm in that, right, I'm working.
So even if you're going to work from home and go to the office, you'll be...
100%. Even if I haven't got an appointment that morning, I'll be ready at 8 a.m. because I'm mentally now in work. Okay. Now I know we say we're 24/7, but I'm mentally there. And then accountability is everything, isn't it? We've said about it so many times. You have to hold yourself accountable to get out and do it and attack every environment and attack every meeting, not let people down. And if you haven't got that, it's probably not right for you, because you need your manager to say, right, you're in at 9 o'clock and you just turn up at 9 o'clock. But you have to be well-rounded and you have to be entrepreneurial now enough to learn everything else. Because we've had to. We've done it now I've been in DDO around 2.5 years, 3.5 years, 4 years, whatever it's been now. Christ, I've had to learn on the spot. We're learning on the spot every day.
Yeah.
Every day I'm put out of in an uncomfortable situation, and having to learn how to deal with it. We're now bringing on somebody, together who's based up north in a really successful market up north. And so now me and you are sitting down going, okay, now we've got to process this. How are we going to manage it? How are we going to offer the support?
So without going into too much detail, do you want to explain to people a little bit in more detail of what's happening with that and how that looks?
Yeah.
Because again, it's us growing our team out with someone that was in a role with something that she loved but wanted a slight change. Yeah. And she's now going to hopefully fulfill her ambitions.
So we got introduced to a lady who was super motivated to want to be a real estate agent. And she's had a very colourful career now, up to date, working with some fantastic clients and great people in the industry. But she's always had that burning desire to be a real estate agent. And so she approached Benji and I and said, look, I've got a good network and I'm super hungry to make it as a real estate agent.
And to be clear, she was a EA.
Yes, to a high net worth. Yeah, and I need the guidance, okay, and I need the brand and the knowledge behind me to be successful. So and she approached us to be part of a team. And so Benji and I have taken a step back, and she's based up north, okay, in the Cheshire marketplace. I think we can be open about that now, which is after our due diligence, is a flourishing marketplace. And there's a real opportunity there. And we are now supporting her, bringing her on in our team, offering her the guidance, the support of knowledge, and we'll be up there with her and we'll be supporting her on the phone every day and giving her the tools to be successful. But she will be able to now run her own business, doing what she loves, with a fantastic brand of DDRE behind her, and hopefully 2 amazing brokers that can support her in doing it. And she'll be super successful, I have no doubt, and we'll make it work. We will make it work, okay? And that just shows that you don't have to have the experience, but you were right.
Well, this is where it's so interesting in terms of the future of real estate. And I know we're talking about the difference between the corporate and the brokerage model, but this lady's not even been in real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, she's obviously dabbled in it through her the family office she was working for, but there will be people that are in interior design, who have been EAs, who have been lawyers, whatever it may be. But if they're closest to the customer, we could have a lawyer reach out to us one day and be like, listen, I'm just so fed up with my industry. I don't want to do these sort of things anymore, but I've got the most amazing network.
Yeah.
Can you maybe teach me and I'll bring my black book? That's someone we'd bring into our team.
Yeah.
And that I don't think is someone that perhaps could go into the corporate world. No. I don't know. I can't see how that.
Yeah. Look, she's built businesses for the client at the moment, so for her to go having to take all the steps back, to probably be a sales negotiator back in the local office down the road is just not, going to fulfill her, but also probably not give her the best opportunity to be successful, maybe.
So with the freedom, I think it has been quite appealing to this lady, the fact that we can go up there, we can travel, she can come down here, and we can help her come up with a business plan that suits her time, because I know she's got a kid, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And I think having that freedom versus the structure of having to be at your desk at a certain time, I can't see how that perhaps would appeal to her coming in.
Yeah.
So I know we touched on it before in terms of the freedom and the structure.
Yeah.
I do think that freedom play of the brokerage world has a big impact on people, because the value and the quality of their life that they can live, not having to be at your desk from 8:30 until 7:30 is really, really valuable.
Yeah, super valuable. But I suppose that the biggest part as well for me is, when you're employed, you have to kind of not be at your desk, but you're employed between 9 and 6, let's say. And once you finish the viewing, you've got to go back to the office, okay? And then you have to get permission maybe to go out and meet someone new or go network, okay, out of office or during office hours. And that for me is the biggest killer. I sit down with 2, 3, 4 new people a week, I would say, and go out for coffees at Home House in Marylebone, and meet amazing people. And I'm now able to collaborate with them. And that's something which I don't think I was ever really able to ever do before. You can go out to a networking event in an evening, but could I actually sit down with a private office, a wealth manager, a lawyer, a tax advisor, and actually take them out for a coffee, build a brilliant relationship one-on-one, where ultimately you'll be passing business to each other.
100%.
And you were never given that before.
No, I agree. So I just want to take it down a slightly different path. And I know we have done or are doing a podcast on branding and social media. So obviously the difference between corporate and brokerage, I don't know if you felt this, and maybe you can give your experience. So when you're working your nuts off in a corporate world, you're building a business for someone else. And when you go into the brokerage world, like we're doing, and we are self-employed and we're growing teams, I'm spending time and effort on growing the Weinberger team. Do you think agents are more incentivized to do more and do better when you're building something for yourself rather than for someone else?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Is that obvious?
Well, I think it is. I mean, look, I'll caveat that. You put everything into Knight Frank when you were there.
Blood, sweat and tears.
Okay. And every position, Berkshire Hathaway, wherever I worked for, I put blood, sweat and tears. Okay. And worked above and beyond, were hopefully a brilliant representation of the businesses, etc. And you don't mind. That's your work ethic. That's just you. Okay. That's just us, who we are as individuals. But now looking back, okay, like you said, now you are building your own business for the future, okay? A business which is going to create, hopefully for you, value for the future in building your own teams who will produce you income for the future. And let's just strip it back as well to money and everything else, okay? You're building a brand which maybe one day you can take a bit more of a step back, but actually your team, your company is built to keep on producing or give you more time to do other opportunities, wherever it may be. We're building businesses to now hit the Cheshire marketplace. Could we have done that now? No, I can't be going up to Cheshire, like building a business up there. Now we have an amazing opportunity for us, for the future. And that's what you don't get, I think, when you are employed. Because you are, unfortunately, capped to an extent where you are building someone else's business. The owner at the top is in our shoes. It's great for them. But actually, when you decide to do something in the future, you're already behind a little bit.
So are you suggesting that perhaps being so big, talking on an individual level, being in a company that is so big could actually hinder you?
Yeah.
Whereas working in a smaller independent brokerage, you have the opportunity to grab something with two hands in the Northwest.
Yeah. You know, at previous companies I've worked for, you know, if Dalio's joined us now in doing Cheshire, if she'd approached me when I was at the corporate agencies, would I have been able to go to the owner at the top, who sometimes you might not ever meet, depending on how big the corporate structure is, and say to him, oh, by the way, I actually want to like do something in Cheshire. You wouldn't even, it's not even a discussion. You don't even think about it. It's like a no, you can't get to that point. Whereas now we can actually start to take opportunities with both hands. This podcast, like, come on, like there's no one out there in a corporate agency doing podcasts like that. There's no one sat down there doing it. There's no one championing it.
So do you think you've developed more as an individual and as an agent since you've joined DDRE?
Oh, wholeheartedly. Because I think, like we said, you start thinking way more entrepreneurial. You are around people who are creative and are pushing and striving to be the best, and they push you harder. And you start to see what other people are doing and think, okay, I want to replicate that, or I want to try something different. You know, we were talking the other week about your what they call the Friday, the newsletters, you know, which, okay, it's not something completely, you know, the new and latest things out. But not many people do it. You're getting 600 or 700 odd people look at that every weekend. It's wicked. I go back and go, I'm inspired by Benj to do that.
And I've got the marketing team to support me.
Got marketing team support. One of the ladies in DDRE is just about to start her podcast. You know, she was speaking to me the other day, tips and hints, and like, she's been inspired because of us. That's wicked. That we're driving each other. Do you get that sometimes when you're employed? I don't know. But I suppose we're building something for the future. If you're employed and you want to become a broker at some point, okay, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years time, you've got to kind of start putting the steps and the platforms in place ready for it. But if you don't do that and then you just jump, you kind of, I think you're taking a couple of steps back slightly.
So what will happen to the industry if one of the big corporates have a section of the business that is, I don't even know if they would be able to do it, that is a brokerage. So for example, you can go and join X company, leverage off the brand and the global exposure.
Yeah.
And you're not on a salary. You are able to earn high commissions.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that could happen, but what happens if that?
Why could it not? Why aren't they actually thinking about that? It's a great question, isn't it? Because ultimately, if we're seeing a better caliber of agent leaving corporates now because they know that actually maybe they can earn more as a broker and they have more freedom and they can build a business for the future, and they're not just set to having their comfort, okay, which again is a great thing. Like, they've built their careers to get to a position where they get a certain amount of money and bonuses every year. It's a great thing to be in. Like, some people, it's great for them. But if you don't want that, then those bigger corporates, or the just employed businesses are going to lose those people because they want to then go and further their career or do something different. But actually, if that corporate or company thought about having an option, we're saying, look, we want to keep you. Hopefully you love us as the brand. We love you because you've worked for us for 10 years and you're doing well every single year. Why can't we sit down and make this work? It comes then down to the platform, doesn't it? And that's what we've spoken about. And this, I think, probably goes on to our next topic of, there's probably people out there going, okay, I want to go it. I want to do self-employed. What do I do now? Who do I speak to? Like there's 3 or 4, brokerages, not just in London, there's probably 50, 100 maybe across the UK. Then they have to work out what brokerage to join.
Such a great question. And I think about this often, but just backtracking a bit before we go on to that, because I think that's a really, really interesting piece. And obviously we'll sell it in such a biased way of DDRE. But going back to the question of why don't they do it?
Yeah.
But then I'm just thinking in my head, like if you look back, I don't know, 15, 20 years to Nokia in the phone industry, or like Blockbuster in the DVD or whatever industry. Yeah. Why didn't they do it?
Yeah.
They could see that it was happening. Yeah. But they just didn't move with the times. Yeah. And then they just there were no more. Yeah. Because there was a new era of how people watch movies and how people stream things. Yeah. And with phones, with the emergence of the smartphone and the internet, and Nokia just...
Remember BlackBerry, prime example.
So they had the opportunity to move with the times and
killed it
and kill it.
And then suddenly they didn't.
Everyone had a Nokia.
Yeah.
Everyone loved Snake.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then they just didn't move with the time. And so it worries me a little bit in as far as if they did do it. Yeah. I mean, it'd be quite powerful. Yeah. But anyway, going back onto the next point. Because as you said, there's a lot of people now that are...
Okay, so let's say Ben, the advice that people are out there now that are on that step then, okay, and they've decided that they want to do the brokerage more, and they think that's the way they want to do it. That's they want to go self-employed. I'm looking at 10 different brokerages in my areas. What advice would you give them to look for when choosing the right platform?
There's a number of things. I think, what does the brokerage offer you? Am I going to go to meet a client and say, I'm Benji from X company? Is that brand that I say going to give me a better or worse opportunity to get that listing? Now, if you're an agent that deals with things around $1 million, 2 million, perhaps at the lower end of the market, I think the brand of the brokerage is perhaps less relevant. If you're an agent that has been, that is experienced and has exposure at the top end of the market, so 5, 10 million pound plus, there are brokerages that will kneecap your opportunity that aren't specialists in selling prime and super prime real estate. So if you went and you said, hi, I'm Benji from Joe Blogs Residential. Yep. And they don't have a track record of selling super prime homes, marketing super prime homes, that will hinder them. If you go and you say, I'm with DDRE Global, and I did say it was going to be biased, but we are known as a prime and super prime agency. We were voted 5th most influential company at selling real estate over £5 million. You go on our website, we have, I think, over 50 properties that we're marketing for sale, over £10 million. That gives you more of an opportunity to go and win that business. So I think you need to look at the brand, how your client would be looking at it. And if those things don't align with what you're trying to do, that's something that I would think about straight away. But the main piece for me, and again, biased, but it's what I said in terms of what the brokerage offers me in terms of tech. Okay. Because anyone can go and open a brokerage and say, you can work under my company. I'll have Rightmove. I'll have Zoopla. You'll have access to Lomres. I'll pay you 50, 60, 70% of the commission. I won't give you a salary. Go and do your thing. Anyone can do that. But what can the brokerage offer that's going to make that agent's life easier? And I think we're very fortunate at DDRE that we've got some amazing tech, mainly ADVSR, which helps us distribute our content of our listings locally and globally seamlessly whilst tracking all the data. That sounds like an ad,
sounds like
reading off my script. That absolutely isn't.
Click on the link below and then you can subscribe.
Use code Benji10. That's so scripted. I'm so used to saying that. But then, the other things like reach, when we put a property into the DDRE network on social media, we can reach, 3.5 million eyeballs a month on us as a business. So, you just have to look at what the company can offer you.
Yeah.
And it's weird that's the kind of dynamic now. Whereas when you go and you interview for a corporate company, you're selling yourself to them.
Yeah.
Now I think it's a case of what can you bring to me?
100%. Like, look, I think the tech massive. I think you've hit a couple of great points there. The third one that I would probably just also say is the people around you to help advise building your business, and we go back to the points of you have to wear 10 hats in a day. If you're not used to that and you haven't got the people around you to support that, it's difficult. Whereas if you've got the people around you to help, to guide, to offer advice, to inspire, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're lucky with. And I'd say that's such a big point for people to really look into, a culture and an ethos within companies and brokerages where you really can see yourself growing.
Yeah. And I would say, take time with the decision you make. If you are going to leave the corporate world and you are going to join a brokerage, you don't want to rush into something like that.
Agreed.
Because what you don't want to do is leave the company you're at, go and call your 20, 30, 40 best clients. And then 6 months later, you have to go and call them again. So I've left this place. I'm now at this place.
Yeah.
And then it starts to muddy the waters. Listen, that's obviously an ideal situation where you just leave, you find the first perfect place and the rest is history. But I wouldn't rush into these sort of things.
Yeah, agreed.
And I would do your due diligence. I would speak to people in the brokerage. I'd speak to people that, if you can find out that have left that brokerage, speak to us as independent people. But I would do the due diligence because you don't want to get it wrong.
Do you think that going self-employed isn't for everybody?
100%. 100%. There are people that are happy with comfort, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Having your salary, as I touched on before, knowing what you're going to get paid at the end of the month. There are some people that don't want to push the boundaries. And I think that's the reason why the world works and why people can build big businesses, because you have people within that business that are happy to do their job and kind of plod along. What we do is fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's fucking scary. I have had points, even now that I've been doing it for 3 years, where I'm like, fuck, where's my next deal? I don't know why I've sworn 3 times in 20 seconds. I'm like, where's my next deal going to come from?
Yep.
When the market's tough, there are so many things that are out of your control. And I'm one of the more entrepreneurial people, and I work so hard, and I still have moments of difficulty.
Yeah.
So unless you have this burning passion to go and do more and want to take on the world, that's a small percentage of people. Yeah. So which actually leads me on to one of the questions that I was going to answer in the quick fire, but it doesn't have to be quick fire. So at the moment, I would probably guesstimate that in terms of agents that are running around in London, in terms of the percentage split of corporate versus brokerage, I would probably say it's favored. Maybe 80% of agents are working or employed. Yep. And then a smaller percentage, 20%, are under the broker model. Where do you think that's going in the future? Where do you think in 5 years' time, with an 80-20 split now, where do you think it will be in 5 years' time on that split?
It's a good question. I think that percentage will certainly grow in the terms of self-employed. Okay, I certainly feel that will go up. I think it's because really over the last 2 or 3 years, there's never, even over the last 5, nothing really has been pushed about self-employed. And I think that's also down to our educational system. We can probably get into that and the whole world of, I believe our educational system doesn't breed entrepreneurs. It breeds us to do our GCSEs, to go to university and work in a full-time employed job, 9 till 5 until you retire. And actually, if you don't experience it, something you said earlier resonated with me, where you said something like, maybe you should have left Knight Frank 2 years earlier, or you were thinking about leaving for 2 years. And I'm very similar to that. I think I've been thinking about it for a couple of years before I joined DDRE. And there's something needs a little push to get you over the line with it. The agency model is changing rapidly. And we both know with AI and the technology and social platforms and digital platforms, it's going to become even more opportunistic for people to sell property, whether or not you've got 1 year's experience or 20 years experience. And I think more people will start to realize that there is more opportunity for them actually to build businesses at being self-employed. And that actually, when you're in a corporate world, in 5 years' time, like if everything's on AI and you can find answers on your phone, it's going to come down to the relationships that people have and trust that you have. And we're building digital brands to hopefully be closer to the customer. They will not, I don't think they'll be walking into high street agents at all in 5 years' time.
Yeah, it's such a good point with the emergence of where the world is going, because if you are closest to the customer and you can choose where you work, why would you perhaps choose somewhere where you have a low salary and you might get 10-15% versus you can go into a brokerage and get north of 70%?
I suppose that's the question. I suppose we're biased.
Yeah, I mean, well, look,
because of what we're doing.
You've got someone in your team, right? Mila, she's unbelievable. Take so much inspiration from her. She was in the art world, right? So she has an amazing black book. Yeah. With the way it's currently set up, why would she have gone to a corporate to get a lower percentage when she can join you, have your expertise on a one-to-one basis and make a lot more money? Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think you're right. I think it's just down to people's motivations. A lot of people want to be comfortable. I've met many people, like they're happy to work all day and work hard, to take salary home, to have the weekends off and the afternoon and evenings off. And like it's that work-life balance. That's what the balance they want. There's probably there's loads of negatives for us. We've got calls tonight, tomorrow. I've stopped doing things like, Jess Bishop's just gone on holiday. She hasn't gone on holiday for 2 years. Oh, well, first holiday. I thought you just said she's gone on holiday for 2 years. No. She's just gone on holiday. But she has, it's hard. I went through last year. We didn't do a deal for 5 months. But it's hard. There's hardships. I don't think, and just to be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with being comfortable. No, I agree. Because that's a large percentage of the people that will work in big corporate companies. They're happy with what they've got, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there will be a percentage of people that want to challenge that and want to go and earn what they want. Yeah. And I think what we have the freedom. Hopefully by doing this podcast, it educates people they've been thinking about it. They've heard more about it. They've seen more people in the industry do it, but they don't know what to do. And that's why we do, again, the podcast, isn't it? So they can hopefully listen to this for an hour and it hopefully gives them a bit of a push in a direction and go, actually, do you know what? It is for me. Or it's not for me, or actually I need to find out more now about this, or actually I'm going to go and ask these 4 brokerages how they're going to help me build my business. And that's hopefully the value that we're offering people. So that's why we're doing the podcast. Yeah. Right. Should we do some quick fire questions? A couple of quick fire questions. Wrap up? Yeah, let's do it. With a higher percentage of agents moving to the brokerage world, and again, such low barriers of entry, could that weaken the quality of the agents that are running around in London? Yes, because ultimately anyone can start being an estate agent tomorrow. Okay, you can put on your handle a luxury ultra prime real estate advisor and suddenly you'll perceive that you are. I actually hope that by doing it, there might become more regulation and it might become regulated where you have to pass an exam like they do in America and many other countries to become a broker. So that hasn't been quick. But that's my answer. I'm getting looks from Mariana. We just get so carried away. They're hard to answer quickfire. Right, me. I see so many properties with CGI furniture in them. Are you allowed to do that? ? No comment. I don't know what the legalities are. Maybe that answers the question from before. I mean, I suppose that with marketing now, there is a whole. I think you have to write about it. I think you have to state about it. Yeah, computer generated images, and it's not the actual representation of the home. So I think you can do it as long as you're clear on massively. Yeah. What's the one thing you don't miss about working in a corporate company? I would say not having to sit at my desk. Yeah, I don't miss that. Yeah, because I'm far away from the customer when I'm sat at my desk. Yeah, great answer. I actually don't have any others. That's it. That's all of our quick questions were quick questions. And I answered one of them during the podcast. Good. Look,
I hope that's been valuable for everybody watching. It's a topic that we could probably actually spend another couple of hours talking about.
Yeah.
If anybody wants more advice,
Yeah.
or just a chat, or just any other questions that we've spoken about, please just DM us. We're at the Real Estate Talk podcast, or Benji Weinberg or Oliver Ingalls. Just come to us, speak to us. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you found knowledge in it. Again, if you have found anything useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Me and Benji take time out of our own days. We spend a lot of money on it. We love what we do. We love what we're doing with the podcast, but it would give back to us for you to like, subscribe, and share.
And also, please do take us up on reaching out to us, because it's not an empty thing that we say. We get so much joy when you guys message us, in discretion, of course, because we just want to help you guys. So please, if you are thinking about moving, if you're thinking about moving within the corporate world, not actually leaving to go to the brokerage world, message us. We would absolutely love to help you guys and girls.
Beautiful way to end it. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Thank you.